Okay, so at the end of the last slide, I was talking about, they'll ask you a question about South Carolina, Southeast being Baptist, South Carolina being Baptist, but then they get down to the county level, and even though it's still Baptist, they find a lot of other denominations. They find Lutherans, Methodists, Catholics, whatnot. Same thing here in Lodi. You see, wait a minute, California is Catholic? Well, San Joaquin County, we're majority Catholic. Okay, that's hard for a Lodi kid to grasp because you just see one St. Anne's church. But like I said, they've got like 7 masses. All right, whereas Protestant faiths usually have their church and they have like the old people service early in the morning, or with more traditional music, and then a later service with more rock and roll. All right, so it's just one congregation using one building. All right, so that's why we have that same analogy here. San Joaquin County is California, or the Southwest is Catholic, California is Catholic, San Joaquin County is Catholic, but then you get into the city of Lodi and you see, no, there's lots of denominations and different religions. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. All right, non-Christian faiths. What you need to know here is that people coming over, they're usually newer immigrants, and they usually settle in urban areas because that's where the jobs are. So you're going to find more Muslims in urban areas, all right? Jewish people in urban areas, and then newer religions that are coming over. Mr. Hillstrom is going to talk later about Baha'i. There are ones that will get into an ethnic enclave or an ethnic city. Like if you go up and down the valley, Yuba City has a huge Sikh population. Sikhs are big farmers. That's what they did back in India. They're doing it here. They're truck drivers. So you can find those areas. Lodi started out as German Lutheran. Turlock started out as Swedes, and Swedes would be Lutheran too. Yeah, okay. So you'll find those. But today, since most immigrants are coming to urban areas, you're going to find more different religions or ones you're not familiar with in urban areas. All right, here you've got the cartogram. We're dividing up the world by Legos. And you can see where Islam is. Followers of Islam are Muslims. And you think, oh, it's all right here. Well, not a lot of people there. There's more sand than people. And you can see that it's spread through the areas through trade. All right. And the interesting thing that the writers talk about is diffusion and distance decay. Here in Southwest Asia, where the church began, that's where the rules are the strictest. That's where they just follow it to the letter. And then as you get farther away, they've kept their own language. They've kept a lot of their own customs. What do I do here? Go back. Okay. They've kept a lot of their own customs, the way they dress, all those things, but they are still Muslim. So that was kind of fascinating. When they talk about space, talk about distance decay, all right, you get less strict as you get farther away from the hearth. And that leads to Mr. Hillstrom. Okay.
So we talked about Christianity having different branches. There are also different branches in Islam. So the difference, there's 2 in Islam, 3 in Christianity. Okay, so the split in Islam goes back to the rightful successor of Muhammad. So you'll learn more about this in world history. But before Muhammad, there were just a lot of tribes out here, and they were all arguing and fighting over scarce resources. When Muhammad comes, he unifies all of the tribes. Okay, and so he brings great peace, and along with great peace comes great wealth and lots of trade, right? And so the religion starts to expand. Well, after Muhammad dies, he doesn't have a male heir to pass his legacy off to. So 2 groups form. One group, the Shia, say that Ali, Muhammad's cousin, should be the successor. And the Sunni, who become the larger group eventually, they say, no, it should go to a group that we just elect, okay, the caliphs. Right? And so these 2 groups at the beginning, they're very hostile. There's a lot of fighting. And at some points in time, the Sunni take over. And other points in time, the Shia take over. Okay. Eventually, it winds up that the Shia become more the minority. The Sunni become the larger group. Okay. I think for our purposes here, you need to know. And this is kind of cool. It shows you the 2 branches, and then sort of the green and blue lighter colors. I guess would you call those denominations or sects? Which would you call it? I think maybe in Islam it'd be a sect. Because everyone, if you're in this sect, everyone else is a sect. It's kind of a negative connotation. So anyway, it wouldn't be like, oh, a denomination, and we can coexist. It'd be more like, oh, those infidels, we don't want to talk about them. So anyhow, but it does show you there's a lot of variation in how people practice Islam. Okay?
Can I say something before you go on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to point out where they are, right?
It's not a big deal. What you need to know the difference between Shia and Sunni. You don't need to get into all of their tiny little, think of Baptists and Lutherans. The Muslims have that going on too, and how they dress, how they perform their ceremonies, how they do things. We just need to know the generalities of it. But just know that the Muslims are just like us. They've got all their tiny little ways of doing things.
Yeah, and I think you might also need to know just, where the Shia are. Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, okay, those countries, as long as you know that that's where the Shia are, and then these guys, these are the Sunnis, they're the majority, okay? Saudi Arabia would be Sunni as well. All right, so Buddhism starts with Siddhartha, right? He starts out in this area, sort of Nepal. We talk about him as Kanye West, right? He leaves the palace, he sees suffering, he meditates, he becomes the Buddha. And then you get the formation of the religion. So what this is showing us is there's also branches in Buddhism. All right. Now Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism are all universalizing religions. And one of the things about universalizing religions is they have missionaries. They have people who will spread their ideas and try to gain converts. Okay. And hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. Now, something that's a little different about Buddhism from the other two universalizing religions is this one is syncretic. Okay, you might get that word. So syncretic means you can be a follower of Buddhism and also another religion. So when I was in Japan, okay, there's an animist religion called Shinto there, where they do the rocks and they do Zen gardens and stuff like that. And we would see these little shrines and we say, what is that? It's a Shinto shrine. You go up and you pray, and it's about being one with nature, and it's about communing with all living things. And then we say, well, what's this huge one over there? Oh, that's a Buddhist temple. Well, why do you have both? And they say, well, you live Shinto and then you die Buddhist. Okay, that way you can be reincarnated and come back as something. So anyhow, syncretic. All right, Hindus, where are they? India. Okay, primarily. Right now we're getting into our ethnic religions. Ethnic religions, you're usually born into it. You're not usually converted into it. And you can see most Hindus are in India, okay? Sacred space for the Hindus is the Ganges River, okay? We'll talk about pilgrimages later. A pilgrimage for Indians is to go to the Ganges. It's the river that comes off the Himalayas, and they believe that Shiva, the god, rested on top of that mountain, and this is the hair of Shiva. And if they bathe in that river, it will purify them.
Okay, so the word syncretic comes back again. You're going to find a lot of, I don't like this word primal indigenous, primal beginning, indigenous, the first people. Indigenous is okay, but that whole primal thing, I think we have negative connotations. But the early peoples, they were animistic. They believed in gods of, rain, thunder, wind, all of those things. And you'll find a lot of them in Southeast Asia, and they are syncretic. They can believe in their old animist ways, and then they can also adopt the new Buddhist faith, because Buddhism is a lot about, earth, wind, sun, all of those things. So they have no problem with being both, okay? All right. Now, here you can see they're showing Africa, and in 1900, how many still had their folk religions versus 2010. And I'm watching this fascinating series right now on African civilization with Louis Gates, and I didn't know how early Christianity came. I mean, these guys over here have been Christians since early on. I mean, not too long after Christ, and they actually even believe that the Queen of Sheba hooked up with King Solomon, and so they're part of the 12th tribe of Israel, and they also believe that they have the Ark of the Covenant there. All right, so I thought the British had brought Christianity. but you start seeing it early on.
Is that the Coptic?
No, Coptic's way up here. They got a whole thing going on in Ethiopia, and they built these churches, these cathedrals out of stone. It's all pretty fascinating. But what you start seeing is when the British colonize, when they divvy it up in the late 1800s, Christianity is going to come big. And then as Arab traders come through, Islam's going to spread more and more. And it's really cut into the old animistic religions. They die out. The grandparents die off, and then so do the old religions. Okay, now here we're talking about a cluster of religions with at least 1 million people, meaning they're smaller. We've heard of some of them. Obviously Judaism, all right, Jewish people started in Israel, but they were fleeing. First they fled Israel 2,000 years ago, and they were through Southwest Asia and Europe. But then when the Holocaust, when some of them saw it coming, they started coming over to the United States. So there's a big population here too. I love the Zoroastrianism. Okay, there it go back to the time of Abraham, and they argue that they were the first ones to have only one God. All right, and Freddie Mercury's family with Queen, they were Zoroastrian guys. Okay, we know about Sikhs here in Lodi. It's the big temple over by Mickey Grove. They're in northern India, and it's a blend of Islam, Hinduism. I've been to one of their services, and I thought it sounded very Christian to me. I knew what was going on. I'm like, hey, they do a lot of stuff that we do. Jainism down in southern India. This has been a question sometimes on the AP test about what is an ethnic religion in southern India, and it's Jainism, all right? Let's see. We've talked about Shinto, and the other ones, I don't know anything about, okay? I'm just a kid from Lodi, all right? Okay. And that takes us to Baha'i. This is Mr. Hillstrom's favorite subject.
I love Baha'i. The Baha'i are very interesting to me. So one thing you may need to know a little bit about is some of the beliefs of some of the religions, okay? So in Islam, there's 5 pillars, and the last one is there's no other prophet besides Muhammad. Okay, so Muslims believe that there were a lot of prophets, like the Jews had Abraham. They're like, yeah, we believe in that. And then they believe, the Christians, they had Jesus. He's a prophet. Okay, cool. But Muhammad, he was the last prophet, okay? Well, not everyone believed that. So there was, in 1844, this offshoot of the Shia religion starts in Iran. And this young Iranian man, he's studying the Quran, and he finds a spot in there where he says, there's a 12th priest, and he's going to come back, and there's going to be another prophet. Don't say that. That is blasphemous, okay? So he's not very popular, needless to say, okay? And so how much time do we have?
A minute and a half.
Okay, I'm going to get through this. So he doesn't have, he's not very popular because of his saying that there's going to be another prophet after Muhammad. That violates one of the 5 pillars, okay? Anyway, he continues with he has followers. They continue to follow him. He passes it off to his son before he's killed. And this religion spreads. You can see there's a lot of Baha'i here in India and a lot of Baha'i over here in the United States and up here in Alaska. The basic beliefs are they want to overcome all the divisions that have been caused by religion. So if you were to attend a Baha'i service, you would hear readings from the Quran and the Bible and the Torah, and then you might even hear some Henry David Thoreau or something like that.